I am the granddaughter of a first lieutenant and an assistant company commander killed on October 15th, 1972, fighting alongside America during the Secret War. When the U.S. Hmong Air Base Long Chang fell 2.5 years later, the graves of hundreds, if not thousands of the Hmong, including my grandfather, were desecrated for our stand against tyranny. I am the daughter of Hmong refugees displaced by war and persecution from one side of the world to the other. My father was born in a village with a population of 50, and in 1964, orphaned for most of his life and destitute, he joined the military. On the plain of jars, he witnessed the blast of some of those jars containing his fellow comrades. In St. Quang, during a particularly dark night, surrounded by incoming communist forces, he fell off the side of a mountain and sustained an injury that would stay with him for the rest of his life. In Long Chang, he tended to the grief-stricken widows struggling to find their place in a world without their loved ones. And in Paquet, he watched over the elderlies, ensuring that they would not be left behind. Born out of wedlock on a dirt floor underneath the thatched silo, my mother's arrival into this world foretold a grim future. As his only daughter, my mother's father sought to educate her like a son. But when the war came, her father was among those who were uprooted to Long Chang to secure the safety of General Vang Pao. And so she lived in Long Chang during the war, growing up alongside some of the general's young children, and eventually meeting my father. After the fall of Long Chang, my father, a second lieutenant at the time, and my mother fled to Thailand by foot. They barely survived the 13-day journey, which my mother recalls as being a trail of death and despair. My parents spent the next 4 years within the impoverished confines of a refugee camp until 1979. And boarding that plane headed for this country, my mother thought America was a place in the sky. Fast forward to today, I'm a first-generation Hmong American. I grew up during the acclimation period of the 80s and 90s, where the Hmong diaspora struggled in virtual silence. Our service to this country was kept secret and our stories were untold. And as a result, our presence here in America was often misunderstood and sometimes outright rejected. This is my family history. This is our Hmong history. Hmong history is one of persecution. It's one of enslavement. It's one of abandonment. We have survived it all. And that is why Hmong history is also one of tenacity. It is one of resilience. It's one of courage. It is one of evolution. During the Secret War, the Hmong were among the last to be trained to fly, simply because others did not want to see us rise. They thought we weren't educated enough. They thought we were too primitive. But once we finally got up in those skies, some of the best pilots in that war rose from our people. So it was never that we couldn't. It was never that we weren't smart enough, and it was never that we didn't have the capacity. We just needed the opportunity. And here in America, that is exactly what we have. And look at how all of you have grown. So remember this the next time we're reminded about what we lost. For whatever it is we have lost, in exchange, we have gained the world. Happy Hmong American Day, everyone.